Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the meeting. Can I remind everyone that the meeting is being live streamed to YouTube? Are there any apologies, please?
I've received apologies from Councillor Purnell.
Thank you. I think all other members are here. Thank you. Declaration of interests. Can I ask if there are any declarations of interest, please, both disclosable, pecuniary or affected interest? Has anyone got anything to declare? No? If you find during the meeting you have, then can you please raise it? Item 3, the minutes. Are there any matters arising or points of accuracy on those minutes, please? None? Then I propose the minutes are adopted as a correct record. Can I ask for a seconder, please? The minutes, thank you. Councillor Bailey. Can I ask all those, please, to vote for them with a show of hands? All those in favour of accepting the minutes, thank you. Item 4, urgent items of business. Are there any urgent items of business?
No, none notified.
Right, thank you. Then we come on to item 5, which is the climate change strategy. And I will present this to you. It's the climate change strategy and phase 1 delivery plan. And I ask for you all to support and agree that it goes out for public consultation. Climate change is the greatest challenge we and our future generations face. We have to act to ensure our biodiversity, food supply, water systems, wildfires, health and economy are not endangered. The new climate change strategy is aligned to the ambition of the whole Council to reach net zero by as near 2030 as possible. This strategy outlines our approach to climate change issues for the next 4 years, decarbonising the activities of the Council, but also supporting climate action across Bracknell Forest. It includes a focus on encouraging growth in the green economy. The delivery plan sets out proposed revenue and capital investment. Internal investment is needed, but external funding and sources are also highlighted. Action and behaviour change is needed to mitigate the climate crisis. But this strategy also highlights the benefits of cheaper energy, clean air, new jobs and a flourishing natural environment. I ask you to support this when we come to the vote and it go to consultation, which will end on January the 12th. Can I now ask, please, Damien James, Assistant Director for Contract Services, if he'd like to add anything to that?
Thank you, Leader. Nothing further to add. Very comprehensive introduction. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions from anyone of the officer, please? None? Then I would like to move the recommendation 3.1 to 3.2 on page 25. Can I ask for a seconder, please? Councillor Wright. Thank you. I would like to speak to this, as you would expect me to do so. This is a very different climate change strategy to the last one, and it's a huge leap forward. I would like to thank all those who have helped derive it, especially the Climate Change Officer, Sebastian Wright. A cross-party group of councillors reviewed the climate change strategies of all neighbouring councils and highlighted the best practice from each. We made our recommendations to the officers, and this is the outcome. It supports the Council's unanimously supported motion, which identified climate change as an emergency, and the Council's commitment to reach net zero to as near 2030 as possible. The aims of the strategy are there, and it includes what the Council has already done, the key objectives and priority actions to achieve these objectives. Each lists the benefits and how the achievements will be monitored. There are 3 phases highlighted. Phase 1, March 2025 to 26, focuses on the quick wins, but also plans and research to ensure we have the capacity for future phases. Phase 2, March 26 to 27, is acceleration, acquiring the necessary funding, designing and trialling schemes. Phase 3, March 27 to 28, the Council delivers climate change at scale and pace. The strategy outlines our emissions that contribute to climate change, both from the Council's activities and also those from the residents' activities. It proposes ways of mitigating both. It includes the effect of adverse climate change on health, food supply, economic damage and environmental damage. But importantly, it also includes the positive outcomes of successful proposed actions. Monitoring is essential to ensure the strategy is working. A new climate change strategy board will be created to scrutinise delivery. Progress will be reported each quarter with a full annual report to Council. Tackling climate change is a key priority of this Council. This strategy sets out how it will make a real difference. The whole strategy is accessible, interesting and easy to read, with lots of diagrams to assist clarity. It is ambitious but exciting. My thanks to all who made this possible. I ask you to support it when it goes out to support that it goes out to consultation. Would the seconder like to speak?
Thank you, Leader. Since election in May last year, our leader has put climate change at the front and centre of everything our council does. Year on year, global records of temperature, rainfall and extreme weather events are broken. The climate has changed. To protect our future generations, we need to adapt and play our part in preventing further damage to our planet. We can all do our bit, but ultimately it is legislation and change at the local, national and global level that will have the greatest impact. We set ourselves the ambitious target of reducing our emissions to zero as close to 2030 as possible. This strategy lays out the roadmap to reaching our ambitious goals. We need to take this to the residents and hear their feedback during the consultation, and we need to start now, which is why I'm happy to second the motion. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak, please?
Yes, Leader. Councillor Bidwell. This is a great plan, great strategy, and I understand the board will report back quarterly. So would we be expecting the first report back Q1 of next year or Q2 of next year or later?
It starts in March 25, so then it will be reported in the June or July way. Yep.
Thank you. That's great.
Are there any other questions? Any other speakers? No? Well, I'd just like to wind up to say that this is a really I think it's a superb climate change strategy, and I'm really proud to be out there going with the consultation, because it will run alongside the budget consultation, and that will be a very public consultation, and this will go alongside it. So I ask you to support it. It will go out to consultation. There is a final, it will end on January the 12th, and on January the 13th there is also a question and answer session then on Teams for people to come back and also take part in the consultation. Can I ask all those in favour of supporting this goes out to consultation, please? Thank you. We then come on to item 6, the Thames Basin Heath Special Protection Area Supplementary Planning Document. Can I ask Councillor Guy Gilby to introduce the report, please?
Thank you, Chair. Colleagues, I welcome the opportunity to introduce the report on the draft Thames Basin Heaths Special Protection Area Supplementary Planning Document. To provide some background, next slide. Okay, next slide, please. To provide some background on what the Thames Basin Heath Special Protection Area is, heathlands are home to rare species, and in the case of the Thames Basin Heaths, 8,200 hectares spread across Surrey, Hampshire and Berkshire, home to 3 species of birds, the nightjar, the Dartford warbler and the woodlark. Next slide, please. To protect these 3 species, a Special Protection Area, or SPA, was designated. We work in partnership with other councils, land managers and nature conservation bodies to maintain this SPA. To uphold its integrity, developments within range of the SPA are held to strict requirements. These requirements are described in a supplementary planning document, or SPD, which elaborates on policies set out in our local plan. And presentation, please. In short, the SPT upholds the integrity of the SPA in 2 ways. Firstly, by defining the provision of suitable alternative natural green spaces, or SANGs, which are new or upgraded open spaces aimed at diverting recreational activity away from the SPA. Secondly, by requiring payment of strategic access management and monitoring, or SAM, contributions, which go towards the SAM project. This provides wardens for the SPA and monitors the SPA strategy across the region. Colleagues, our current SPD is in need of a refresh, and this report seeks consultation on the changes set out in the report, which I introduce for your consideration. Thank you.
I'm not. Okay, thank you. Sorry. Can I please ask Andrew Hunter if he would like to add anything to that?
Yeah, just a couple of points. So Councillor Gilbey's set out what the Thames Basin Heath Protection Area is for, and the fact that we are asking you to consult on the updated supplementary planning document on this topic. So we're asking you to consult on the changes that are proposed in the document, and this sets out the way in which we'll mitigate the impacts on development on the Thames Basin Heaths. So those proposed changes to the document are principally to bring it in line with the new Bracknell Forest Local Plan, update information on SANG's capacity, include new maps and information on air quality matters, so that those are all contained within the document. The report also sets out the financial changes for the financial rates for the SANG capacity, which is borne by development, and that includes the ability for payments for the strategic access and management and monitoring to be index linked, so an important change to current fees. So it's proposed that the SPD is subject to public consultation, and that will take place in the new year, with a final version of the SPD being brought back to Cabinet for final approval in the spring. So happy to take any questions. Recommendations are set out at 3.1.
Thank you. Has anyone got any questions? Councillor
Thank you, Leader. Councillor Jeffries, as part of the consultation, I know obviously we are involved in a lot of other authorities and organisations. Will they also be part of the consultation?
Yes, we make it the consultation wide-ranging, and we've got a number of people who are on those bodies where we would share the information with them, so that we've got an alignment between policies across authorities.
Thank you. No further questions.
Has anyone else got any questions? Can I ask a question, please? All the time I've been a councillor here for 14 years, we've talked about this area and we've been in there and it's been protected. Can I ask if it's working, the protection we're offering?
Yeah, obviously the purpose of the SANGs is to get people to recreate away from the Thames Basin Heath Special Protection Area. So that's been in operation since 2012. That's been working pretty well. We've got good high numbers at the alternative sites, and I found out the other day from one of another councillors that the birds that we're protecting there are on a lower risk than they were when we started the proposal.
Leader, if I can expand on that point, the numbers of the 3 birds do fluctuate year on year. For example, we did unfortunately have quite a full a couple of years ago due to a couple of fires, but overall the trend has been really positive, as Andrew has alluded to. We still have ongoing problems, for example the difficulty with people coming in with dogs without leads on, because dogs are often the biggest threat to these birds because they're ground nesting, but overall the SPA has done much to reverse the trend of decline that these 3 birds were experiencing, and they do now have a secure haven in which to thrive.
Thank you. Good news. Any other questions? No? Can I ask? Oh,
Yeah, thank you. There's quite a lot of bodies and local authorities involved with this basin and protection. What happens if there's a conflict between various local authorities or various groups? I know there's a reporting mechanism here, but clearly the area is quite large and the differences between objectives probably vary quite a lot.
Just to say, in terms of all of those bodies, they're all signed up to the same issue, so they're all competent authorities, so they all have to make sure that the mitigation to the Thames Basin Heath is dealt with. It's an agreed approach across all of those authority areas, and they all undertake to provide capacity through SANGS and the SAM project, so we're all lined up to that. Hampshire oversee the SAM project on our behalf. The only areas in which we differentiate is sometimes in terms of the fee levels, but by and large the approach is the same and agreed, and there's a board that Councillor Gilby is the chair for.
Thank you.
Yeah, indeed, just to expand on that last point, there's a joint strategic partnership board which brings together the councils, land managers and the nature conservation bodies together. And the remit of this body, although it doesn't have enforcement power, is to provide an overview of the planning process around the region. And indeed, whilst I don't think it's helpful to name names, I, for example, have had to use my role as chair to write into one council that we thought was not fulfilling their obligations. But as Andrew says, they are held to legal requirements.
any further questions? None? Thank you. Can I ask Councillor Gilby to move the recommendation, please? 3.1 on page 67.
Thank you, Chair. Colleagues, it is my sincere belief that the Thames Basin Heaths are the greatest natural inheritance.
Just a minute, I will second that. Thank you.
Okay.
Speak.
I'll just start over. Colleagues, it is my sincere belief that the Thames Basin Heaths are the greatest natural inheritance that this borough offers for future generations. I am proud to be chair of the Thames Basin Heaths Joint Strategic Partnership Board, which, as mentioned, brings together councils, land managers and nature conservation bodies for the mutual benefit of maintaining the SBA. By protecting it, our residents have gained through the introduction of SANGS, many of which are popular destinations, and adds to Bracknell Forest's rich tapestry of green spaces. This new SBD builds upon our work by updating our requirements and introduces critical guidance on air quality mitigation. I would encourage those listening in to get involved in the consultation. The more feedback we receive, the greater our ability to make this draft SBD that much better. Chair, I propose recommendation 3.1 in the report.
Thank you. I would just like to second this by saying we're so fortunate to have this area of rare lowland heathland with all its diversity and in a nearby area that was part of us and part of all these other areas that we share. We must cherish and protect all the species that depend on it. We need to keep people and pets away and give them other areas to walk and enjoy. The provision of suitable alternative natural green spaces does just that. The community infrastructure levy, SIL, paid by developers, helps pay for the wardens. I think the consultation will help residents appreciate what is being done to protect this area and their species. Would anyone else like to speak? Would the mover like to wind up?
Thank you, Chair. Colleagues, to not have an up-to-date SBA, SBD weakens our ability to protect the SBA. Should Cabinet agree to this draft SBA and the associated recommendations in the report, it will be put out for a public consultation from January 15th to February 12th, with both an online portal and hard copies available at Times Square, parish and town council offices and our libraries. Upon consideration of any feedback, a new draft will be presented for final approval by Cabinet later next year. You are also being asked to delegate authority to the Executive Director for Place, in consultation with myself, to agree any necessary minor amendments to the draft SBA SBD prior to public consultation. Thank you.
Can I ask all those in favour to raise their hands, please? Thank you. Is that okay? Yeah. Item 7 is the assignment of council-owned land to delivery of biodiversity net gain. Can I ask the Cabinet Member Guy Gilby, please, to introduce the report?
Here I go again. Colleagues, Biodiversity Net Gain, or BNG, describes how qualifying developments are required to leave the natural environment in a measurably better state than it was before, the minimum measure being a 10% uplift. Indeed, since April of this year, only some minor developments, such as householder applications and proposals affecting an area of less than 25 metres squared, are exempt from the need to deliver BNG. To aid in the delivery of BNG, this report proposes the establishment of council-owned land to act as BNG habitat banks, to enable the council to sell biodiversity units to developers, whether acting inside or outside the borough, to meet their mandatory requirements for BNG. To emphasise, these habitat banks, which essentially describe land where its biodiversity can be improved, will contribute to improving the borough's natural health if utilised by developers for BNG. Biodiversity units describe a way of measuring biodiversity uplift using a statutory biodiversity metric produced by Natural England. The recommendations will also support the aims and objectives of the local nature recovery strategy by improving existing areas for nature and prioritising nature recovery. Further, it will contribute to the Council's own local access to nature standard, which is now embedded in the Bracknell Forest local plan. Colleagues, I present this report for your consideration.
Thank you. Can I now ask, please, Andrew Hunter, Executive Director of Place, if he'd like to add anything to that?
Thank you, Leader. Councillor Gilby has covered the majority of the points. I was going to just pick out one or two other small parts of the recommendation. So the Council is designated as what's called a responsible body for the purposes of biodiversity net gain, and we are seeking to enable ourselves to become a responsible body for another alternative location so that we can monitor each other's biodiversity net gain, which is part of the arrangement. So we are seeking delegations to enable us to enter into a conservation covenant between another responsible body and ourselves, so that enables the monitoring of the sites to take place for the 30-year period. Other than that, I think all the other points were covered. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any questions of the officer? Councillor Jeffreys?
Thank you, Leader. My question is, does this initiative also offset the current town plan as part of it?
So, as Councillor Gilby said, all developments now have to, well, not all developments, but the majority of developments have to leave the site in a better state than they found it in terms of biodiversity net gain. So it's a universal approach to the sort of the planning application process. This is nationally set, so the point will be that they'll have to do it either on site, and if they can't do it on site, they have to do it off site, and that's why we provide the land for that to happen. So it's aligns with our borough local plan, but is nationally set.
Councillor Bailey?
Yes, Councillor Roy Bailey. I'm just interested, could you give a pictorial example of what one of these areas would look like? The size and shape and anything at all that I can put in my mind to understand?
So, I mean, essentially it's increasing the biodiversity of the land. So it could be anything from a verge that you turn from grassland into meadow, or it might be enhancing the wetland areas. It can be anything, and it can be from any scale and any size. But it's just got to demonstrate that you're making the borough more biodiverse than it is at the moment.
Are there any other questions? Thank you. Can I ask Councillor Gilby to move this recommendation, please?
So moved.
I will second it. Would the mover like to speak?
Colleagues, we have an exciting chance to massively improve the biodiversity of our borough. Thanks to Bracknell Forest geography, we have an abundance of land suitable for habitat banks when compared to some of our neighbour authorities. This presents our borough as an attractive option for developers looking to fulfil their biodiversity net gain requirements. Furthermore, as an early entry into the evolving biodiversity units marketplace, we are able to help set the curve on the market price. These recommendations are an important step in this administration's ongoing pledge to improve the natural health of our borough, and in that spirit I propose recommendation 3.1 of the report.
Thank you. I think it's absolutely excellent that nationally developers now have to increase the biodiversity of most development by 10%. And I think this will be the increase will be monitored for 30 years, so it's not just a quick flash and then they can do whatever they like. And hopefully this can be done. I mean, the best thing is it to be done on the site being developed, but if this isn't possible, the next best thing would be to increase the biodiversity on another area, and the best way possible is if that area is chosen is in Bracknell Forest. Hence the need to identify these areas that could be so improved. This will encourage developers to come to Bracknell Forest and to improve our biodiversity. We do not want developers having to pay other authorities to mitigate their responsibilities, or even having to pay the government to do so. These recommendations are to the huge advantage of increasing the biodiversity in our borough. I support the recommendation. Would anyone else like to speak? No? Thank you. Would the mover...
Nothing to add, Chair.
Can all those in favour of this recommendation please raise their hand? Thank you. We now come on to item 8, the capital programme. Can I ask the executive member to move this, please?
Councillor Neal. Thank you, Leader. The two reports in front of us this evening mark an important milestone in the budget setting process for 25-26. Together, the capital and revenue budget proposals put forward for consultation the Council's proposed spending and efficiencies needed to reach a balanced budget position. Starting with the capital programme for this agenda item, the report outlines the Council's capital programme budget proposals for 25-26 to 27-28, focusing primarily on 25-26. We must consult on these proposals for 6 weeks as required by the Council's constitution. The total proposed capital programme for 25-26 is 14.386 million, including 8.388 million funded by the Council and 5.998 million from external sources such as government grants and Section 106 contributions. The key priorities in the programme are: for property maintenance, 1.5 million allocated to address the most urgent maintenance needs. For schools, 1.298 million provisionally allocated for new schools places under the Basic Needs Grant. 500,000 allocated for housing stock maintenance, particularly for homelessness support, and continued investment in highways maintenance supported by the Integrated Transport Block and other grants. At this point, the focus is on consultation, and so the detail in the report will form the basis for this, and I look forward to hearing what residents think about the proposals. Thank you.
Can I ask the Stuart McKellar, Executive Director of Resources, to add anything, if he likes, please?
Thank you, Leader. Just briefly, as Councillor Neal has said, this report largely deals with the proposed new schemes to start from 25-26 onwards. There is, however, one proposal to approve the allocation of funding which we have received for the demolition of the High Street car park in the current year, in order that preparatory works can start for that project before we get into 25-26. But that's all. We're happy to take any questions, Leader.
Are there any questions from any member? None? Right, thank you. Can I ask the Cabinet member to move this recommendation, please?
Thank you, Leader. As I said, this is a key milestone in the budget planning process. The consultation will run from the 11th of December to the 21st of January 25, including engagement with business ratepayers, the Schools Forum and other stakeholders. Feedback will then be considered and the final budget will be recommended on the 11th of February 2025. The capital programme emphasises maintaining critical infrastructure while balancing fiscal responsibility and community needs. The Council aims to manage ageing assets, fund essential services and invest in sustainability initiatives within the constraints of available funding. We do have an increased reliance on borrowing for the programme, which is a fine balance to strike. We have to be careful not to put further pressure on the revenue budget whilst properly maintaining our assets. The Council's funding of £8.4 million for new capital schemes will be supported by around £4 million of income from capital receipts and the community infrastructure levy. We feel that this level of investment is appropriate to maintain and improve the assets that are important for service delivery. As with all the proposals discussed here tonight, I look forward to what residents have to say.
Thank you. I forgot to ask if that was seconded. I do apologise. Is that seconded, please?
Yes, Leader. Councillor Bidwell.
Would you like to speak?
I think I might. Okay. I'd like to second the recommendations 3.1 to 3.4 on page 159 for consultation to take place regarding the General Fund Capital Programme 25 to 26 to 27 to 28. In addition, not surprisingly, I support the recommended 5-year rolling programme of property surveys and maintenance and the additional 425k for South Hill Park as the highest priority. I second.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak?
Thank you, Leader. I'd just like to add that these are important issues that need to be addressed, and I would ask everybody to fully support this initiative to fund these initiatives as they are also strategic in their approach to prolong Bracknell and essential services that we offer. Thank you, Leader.
Would anyone else like to speak? I would just like to say that there is just over £1 million proposed capital investment on behalf of climate change measures. And this is to reduce emissions and to support climate adaptation. Includes things like electrification of heating, installation of solar panels, replacing boilers, flood and drainage work, doors and window replacement, insulating works, all really, really important if we're ever to get near our zero carbon by 2030. So just over £1 million investment is included in this proposed capital budget. Thank you. Anyone else like to speak? The mover like to wind up.
Thank you, Leader, and thank you to my colleagues for their contributions. To summarise, the capital programme emphasises maintaining critical infrastructure whilst balancing spending and community needs. We aim to manage ageing assets, fund essential services and invest in sustainability initiatives within the constraints of the available funding. The proposed level of investment is appropriate to maintain and improve the assets that are important for service delivery. I am therefore pleased to move recommendations 3.1, 3.2, 3.3, 3.4 on page 159 of the report.
Thank you. Can I ask all those in favour to raise their hand, please? Thank you. We then move on to item 9, which is the revenue budget. Can I ask the Cabinet Member to introduce this report, please?
Thank you, Leader. This report is the revenue budget proposals, which alongside the capital programme form the basis for consultation on the Council's proposed spending and efficiencies needed to reach a balanced budget position for 25-26. Again, the focus here tonight is on our requirement to consult on budget proposals for a period of 6 weeks. The proposals are draft, and due to timing, the report is based on assumptions before the provisional local government financial settlement announcement. We expect to receive this the week before Christmas. The Council faces continued financial challenges, including inflationary pressures, increased service demands and uncertainty in funding. Total budget pressures amount to £8.436 million, which is driven by demand for social care and new legislative requirements. We have identified 5.320 million in savings focusing on efficiency, income generation and back office reductions, resulting in a projected budget gap of 3.11 million. This is before we know the actual level of funding that will be available to us, including council tax income. For next year, our base budget, excluding schools, is set to decrease slightly to just over 97 million before considering inflation. Our reserves remain relatively healthy. General reserves are estimated to be 9.85 million by March 25, and we have other earmarked reserves, but we must not be complacent. In summary, the proposals are all in support of spending and efficiencies needed to reach a balanced position. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I ask the Executive Director of Resources, Stuart McCullough, if you'd like to add anything, please?
Thank you, Leader. Yeah, just a couple of points from me. Firstly, around the current year's position, that sets an important context for the budget proposals for the following year. So at this moment in time, we are predicting an in-year position of an underspend of around £800,000 as the core position. But when we add the emerging issues, which we track separate to that, then that position changes to potentially 800,000 overspend. So, you know, it's a significantly improved position from what we saw earlier on in the year, but it's still something that needs to be very closely tracked as we set next year's budget. In terms of the funding settlement, Councillor Neil is absolutely right. We do not have the local government finance settlement yet. We expect that sometime towards the middle of next week. The government did publish a policy statement which gave some high-level indications around what might happen in that. So that was published 2 days before the publication date for this report. We've been able to update the report to indicate what we think is likely to happen in some areas of the finance settlement, but we still need to wait for the full detail next week before we will know the exact impact on our finances for the year ahead. And finally, Leader, an important consideration when we get to February and the final budget proposal is likely to be what the future funding changes are going to be. The government seems very clear that it is looking to significantly rework the distribution mechanism. That's something that we'll need to watch very closely for Bracknell Forest, because obviously any change could have a significant impact on our future financial projections. We don't know what it may look like yet, but it's something we need to have a close eye to. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Councillor Bidwell?
Thank you, Leader. Yes, I understand you haven't got a crystal ball, and that the budget is done, I think, very well, actually. It's an improved position. So apart from government spending or grant, what other factors could change the current budget in a positive way or in a negative way?
Can I just clarify, Councillor Bedwell, is you talking about for the 25-26 budget proposals?
Yeah.
So the things which I think we will need to give careful consideration to between now and February include the extended producer responsibility requirements. So we have been allocated £2.346 million of grant. At this moment in time, we don't know exactly what the spending requirements are going to be around that. That's something which we're waiting to get more detail on, and my colleague to the left, Damien James, is very closely involved in that. So at the moment we have put the grant in, we haven't put any items of spend against that. We'll have to put something, I'm sure, come February, but at this moment we don't have an indication how much that will be. The other key issue that I think we need to have close regard to is around the provider increases, particularly for social care. They have all been affected by national insurance increases, national living wage increases, and providers will be, I'm sure, requesting uplifts which are greater than we have in our current budget proposals. We need to think in February around whether there is scope for the council to go any further to meet their demands. I suspect we won't be able to go all of the way to meet them, but we may be able to go a little bit further when we get to February.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Do we know when this final statement's come out? I mean, it said December 19th at one point, but there's no definite update or anything on that.
It has to be by December 19th, Leader, because that's the last day that Parliament sits.
Okay.
It may be a day or two before that, but it's not going to be much before that, I suspect.
Right, thank you. Are there any other questions? Ask the Cabinet Member to move this recommendation. Oh, we and ask. We'll second it. Thank you. Councillor Bailey,
Yeah, Councillor Bailey, I second.
please.
Yes,
Speak to
thank you, Leader. The picture of local government finances has not materially changed, and we continue to need to balance the needs of providing the standards and services residents of Bracknell Forest are accustomed to and making decisions that are in line with our spending power. There continue to be headwinds and uncertainty, and the proposals laid out in this report account for these. Furthermore, anticipated changes in local government funding allocation begin in 2026-27 could reduce future income for Bracknell Forest. We are not classed as an area of high deprivation, however, we face costs of service delivery that are much higher than other parts of the country. We will lobby central government to emphasise that both factors should be taken into consideration in future funding settlements. As always, this administration is committed to wide public engagement, taking the council to residents. I am pleased that this year we will again be holding in-person engagement sessions to hear the views of local residents on our proposals and encouraging participation in the consultation. We really do want to hear what residents think and value the opportunity to set out our opportunities and pressures. As a reminder, the consultation will run from the 11th of December to the 21st of January 25, including engagement with business ratepayers, the schools forum and other stakeholders. Feedback will then be considered and the final budget recommended to Cabinet on the 11th of February. Thank you.
Thank you. Would the seconder like to speak, please?
Yes, thank you, Leader. Just briefly, all I'd like to say is this has been a rigorous and thoroughgoing process to arrive where we are now with this report. And the consultation process is being taken very seriously with Cabinet members participating throughout. So apart from that, there's little else I'd like to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak? Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Councillor Wright, Cabinet Member for Adult Services. With regards to the budget, there is a growing demand for adult social care services, which is evident in the number of people requesting and receiving either short or long-term support. The rising number of children with additional needs becoming young adults and moving into adult social care is contributing to this increase in demand for services. The support offered by adult services aims to provide information and advice, support with equipment and technology solutions to assist people to remain at home for longer, living a full and active life for as long as possible. Where someone might need short-term reablement or rehabilitation, this is facilitated, again to try and support individuals to remain independent or living in their own home for as long as possible. Ensuring family carers feel supported remains a strong focus of our work. In the coming year, we will increase the number of carers we assist as we implement our all-age integrated carers strategy. Where people do need long-term care, the aim remains to enable people to live at home for as long as is feasibly possible before residential or nursing care is considered. The length of time people are remaining in long-term care has risen. The high unit costs and inflationary and other uplifts continue to factor into the budget pressures within adult social care. Working closely with health colleagues to ensure that health needs are appropriately resourced remains a critical focus for both adults and children's social care. The team in adult services have worked diligently to find savings without compromising the quality of care. I would like to commend Gráinne Siggins and her team in adult services for their dedication and creativity in planning and providing care to those in Bracknell Forest. Our Ofsted rating of good earlier this year is testament to their hard work and success, whilst dealing with extremely challenging financial pressures. I'm happy to support this budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak? I would just like to commend the money added on behalf of climate change activities, which will include 2 more full-time employees plus a full-time apprentice, and expand the band that works so hard for climate change activities and all the changes that are needed. Would the mover like to wind up?
Thank you, Leader. As I said earlier, the proposals are all in support of spending and efficiencies needed to reach a balanced budget position in 25-26. The Council faces continued financial challenges, and the proposals are draft pending the local government financial settlement and consultation. I'm therefore pleased to endorse this report to Cabinet and look forward to engaging with residents over the coming weeks and hearing their views. I'm pleased to move recommendations 3.1 through to 3.6 on page 180 of the report.
Those recommendations are on the board, on the screen as well. All those in favour, please, can you raise your hand? Thank you. Then moving to item 10 on the agenda, revised all-age multi-agency safeguarding arrangements. Can I ask the Cabinet Member, please, Megan Wright, to move this?
Yes, Leader, happy to move it.
Sorry, can you introduce the report first?
Oh, okay. I think Roy was actually going to move it. and
Oh,
then-
sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
Can
Councillor
I ask
Bailey.
Councillor Bailey to introduce the report?
Yes, Councillor Roy Bailey. Both protecting children and young people and ensuring that vulnerable adults are safe remain a high priority for Bracknell Forest Council and its partner agencies. The new multi-agency safeguarding arrangements outlined in this report further build on the strength of our existing safeguarding arrangements, whilst ensuring that we meet the new guidance outlined within Working Together to Safeguarding Children. Keeping children, young people and vulnerable adults in Bracknell Forest safe is a priority for the Council and our partner organisations. We currently have an all-age approach to our safeguarding arrangements, which has a focus on children, young people and adults, including transitional safeguarding as a young person moves on into adulthood. The partnership is between Thames Valley Police, Frimley Integrated Care Board, Bracknell Forest Council and a range of partners including school leaders. Working Together to Safeguard Children 2023 builds on the existing multi-agency arrangements in Bracknell Forest and further strengthens the approach and the strategic oversight by the chief officers of all associated organisations. The arrangements come into force on the 1st of April 2025 and will be formally published before the 31st of December 2024. And I move that the approval be given to the revised multi-agency children and adult safeguarding arrangements outlined in Appendix A.
Thank you. Would the seconder like to speak? Oh, yeah, I beg your pardon. So, all right. Can I ask, please, the Executive Director, Grania Stiggins, to add anything?
Thank you, Leader. Just briefly, just to so we do have strong multi-agency safeguarding arrangements in Bracknell Forest that have been reviewed in the last 18 months anyway, just for us to understand the effectiveness of the all-age board. So when Working Together to Safeguard Children 2023 came out, as a partnership, there were certain aspects of that multi-agency safeguarding arrangements that we wanted to maintain, but we still needed to ensure that we could meet the requirements of the Working Together document plus the Care Act within those current arrangements. We've welcomed bringing in the leaders, the chief officers of the statutory organisations into the safeguarding arrangements as lead safeguarding partners to have that strategic accountability for safeguarding within our organisations. And we've also supported the maintenance of a Bracknell Forest approach to the safeguarding board arrangements. In terms of operational responsibility, my role as Executive Director of People, I will be taking the initial period for the chair of the new board, and we've got named representatives from both Thames Valley Police and the Frimley Integrated Care Board as well. So they're all named and known. And over the coming few months, we're going to be finalising the operational arrangements with view to being able to enact the formal duties outlined within the document attached to the report, so that we'll be good to go from the 1st of April. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you. Can I ask someone to move this, please? No, thank you. Can I ask the Cabinet Member to move this?
Yes, thank you, Leader. I move this amendment. Thank you.
Seconder, please.
Thank you, Leader. I'm happy to second.
Ask the mover to speak, please.
Leader, I have nothing further to add than my opening comments, so I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Would the seconder like to speak?
Thank you, Leader. Since joining the Safeguarding Partnership in May last year, I've been impressed by the dedication of everyone involved. Our meetings consist not only of social workers, but police, teachers, NHS workers, firefighters, doctors, the list goes on. In other words, we are already implementing a multi-agency approach, very similar to the Working Together 2023 guidance. We will be working in a new but familiar framework. We are grateful to Brian Boxall, our independent chair and scrutineer, for all his hard work to date. We look forward to the implementation of the new multi-agency safeguarding arrangements as they come into place. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else like to speak? I would just like to add that all safeguarding is essential for regardless of age, and I think our all-age board has been set up and was working really well before this came along, and now it has to be adapted to fit this in, and I'm sure it will be, and we'll continue in the routine and in the way in which we make it work. So thank you for all the work that's got to go into that now. Any other questions? Can I ask the mover to wind up, please?
Thank you, Leader. There's little else for me to say other than to echo the comments of Councillor Wright in that Brian Boxall has been an outstanding steward of the Partnership Board during the time in my role as part of it. And I look forward to the new arrangements. It's doing a great job and I wholly commend it to the Council. Thank you.
Can I ask all those in favour, please, to raise their hand? Thank you. Thank you. We now come on to item 11, which does have some confidential information included in it. If you wish to ask any questions about that that is in the pink papers or on the confidential things, then we would have to close the meeting to the public and the press. And we have never had to do that since we got elected in May 2023, and I would not want to do it now. So I ask if there is, you have to say that we will close it if you do want to ask the questions, but I'd rather keep the meeting open. Is there anyone that wants to ask a question that is on the confidential part of this item? None? Thank you. Then we will continue, and we will with item 11, which is the Core Azure hosting procurement. Can I ask the Cabinet member to introduce this report, please?
Thank you, Leader. The primary objective of this procurement is to be in control of the Azure environment back in-house, thereby providing the organisation with greater flexibility and continued optimisation and control over scalability for services hosted within the environment. This procurement supports the ongoing delivery of the collaborative working, location-independent working, cloud computing, information assets and data, and a robust and reliable IT strategic theme laid out in the current digital and IT strategy. Thank you.
I think we're joined online by Elise to answer this. Can you, would you like to, I'm sorry, would you like to add anything to what's been said?
Thank you, Leader. I've got nothing to add to the introduction given by the Cabinet member.
Thank you. Nothing from Damien either. Damien James. Okay, thank you. Can I ask the Cabinet member to move this recommendation then, please? 3132. Any questions on this? Sorry. Missing out. No. Can I ask you to move it then, please?
Thank you, Leader. I'd like to move the recommendations 3.1, 3.2 as set out in the document.
Ask for a seconder, please.
Councillor Neil, seconded.
Thank you. Mover like to speak, please?
Only in that this is a large piece of work and I fully recommend that we go ahead with this procurement.
Thank you. Would the seconder like to speak?
Just to add that the approach follows the Council's procurement processes and is aligned to supporting our Council plan objectives. And I'm happy to second.
Would anyone else like to speak? Can I ask the mover to sum up, please?
Thank you, Leader. Nothing further to add.
All those in favour of supporting this recommendation, then please raise your hand. Thank you. We then go on to item 12, which is again has got some confidential information, but I trust that nobody wishes to raise that, ask questions on that part. This is on the sale of land. Can I ask the Cabinet member to introduce the report, please?
Thank you, Leader. What I'm seeking for is agreement to sell the land at Beaufort Park, that's just off South Road, opposite the pavilion there. The land facilitates, or is allocated in the local plan with planning approval. The site will deliver 50% affordable housing, which aligns with our determination to provide affordable homes for residents and their families. The area of land is small in nature and enables the access to 66 units on the approved scheme. The funding supports Council's budget position, and although we don't usually like to get rid of amenity land, this is very, very small and provides more advantage for residents and for the Council than it otherwise would do keeping it. So Cabinet are asked to approve the sale of land to facilitate development. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I ask Andrew Hunter, Executive Director of Place, if he'd like to add anything to that, please?
Yeah, not much to add to that, only to say that the land's not designated as public open space. It's essentially a piece of land that sits alongside the public highway. The sale's considered to meet the best consideration test of Section 123 of the Local Government Act, and subject to the approval of the Cabinet, we would then look to transact with the developer following this meeting to proceed with the sale of the land. But happy to take any further questions.
Any further questions of the officer? Can I just ask how many trees have come down and have they got a TPO on them, please?
3.
So the land has got approval through planning process, and through that planning process it shows that there was a loss of 3 trees, but essentially none of those were under TPO.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? No. Can I ask the mover? Would you recommend them? Will you move, please?
Yeah. The approved Beaufort Park development will develop 226 homes, 50% of which will be affordable housing. The small area of council land to be sold will allow access to 66 of the homes via South Road and should provide less congestion into the new development than being forced to use one extra entrance or exit. Independent valuation experts have advised on the price, and the council have confirmed it represents value for money for residents. The risks of not selling the land are significant delay to the development and incurring unnecessary costs. Delay will reduce the number of affordable houses in the new layout, was forced to use only one entrance. I support this transaction and as it helps secure much needed affordable housing and represents value for money. Development of the amenity land will not have any climate or ecological impact. Please support this sale.
Can I ask the seconder to speak, please?
Thank you, Chair. I happily second recommendations 3.1 and 3.2. It cannot be said enough that Beaufort Park is part of this administration's mission to provide more housing for our community, with 50% of the 226 homes to be affordable. The sale of this land, minor in scale, would allow a secondary access which has been approved by Highways. No tree affected has a tree preservation order. Colleagues, I urge support.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak? I would just like to say, as the councillor, this is my ward, and I think the extra access to this development is really, really important, because it would stop them all coming off the roundabout on 9 Mile Ride. So I think this is a really important part. Would the mover like to wind up, please?
Yes, I have nothing further to add other than the comments that my colleagues have already given. I'll just urge you that you support this.
Thank you. Can I ask all those in favour to raise your hands, please? Thank you. That completes the items on the agenda for this evening. Can you